And it's actually very auspicious to be doing this practice tonight, because today is the last day of 2020, and we're about to start a new year, 2021, although some people are already there. Some people in certain parts of the world, it's already 2021. But here on the west coast of the United States, we're still in 2020. And I think a lot of people in our culture, and also Europe, have the tradition of partying on New Year's Eve, having a party, probably getting drunk, and then, making a lot of noise and shooting off fireworks and so on, which is, yeah, it's fun. But we have the opportunity to do something perhaps more meaningful. And I don't know exactly what other cultures or societies do on this day of New Year's. I have heard that, like the Tibetans they celebrate New Year on a different day. It usually falls in February or March, sometime in the early spring. They call it Losar, and they also celebrate, but usually after, once the New Year starts, then they have lots of kind of picnics and so on. But New Year's Eve, I seem to recall hearing that they do some kind of ritual to clear out the bad energy, negative energy of the old year, so that when the new year arrives, you start clean and fresh. And I've had the experience being in Dharma centers on New Year's where we'll do something like a purification practice on New Year's Eve and try to stay up all the way to midnight and just really purify, clean up, and see the new year in with a clean mind. And people seem to really enjoy that. It's kind of significant, meaningful to do such a practice. So I'm really happy that we have the opportunity to do this here. And so I think Venerable Chundi already spoke about the basic idea of purification, the 4 powers, the practice of Vajrasattva. Some of you may not have joined the earlier session, so probably doesn't hurt to repeat some of these things. So the practice of purification in the Tibetan tradition is very, very important. It's actually a big part of our practice, and not just in the beginning when we're starting out, but all the way through. Yeah. The reason why it's important is because we have the tendency to make mistakes, to commit actions that are not positive and instead are what we call non-virtuous or unwise, unskillful. I don't like to use words like sin and evil. Many of us were brought up in other faiths that use those terms and might bring up certain thoughts and feelings. So I think unwise, unskillful actions is a more appropriate term, because according to Buddhism, just kind of the Buddhist view of us as living beings, unenlightened beings, is that our basic nature, our deepest and truest nature, is actually pure, what we call Buddha nature. And this is there with us. It's always been there. Buddhism says we didn't just start existing in this life, but we've had many, many lives before. And during all of those lives, there's been this pure nature within us. Now, it's difficult to describe exactly what that pure nature is. It's something quite profound to understand, but it's the nature of our mind. One analogy that is sometimes used is the sky. When, there's certain times when the sky is completely clear, no clouds, no pollution, no airplanes or birds flying through it, just really clear and vast and pure, clean. Or when you go up in an airplane, even if there's clouds down below, when you go up in an airplane, you go up high enough, you get to where there are any clouds or pollution. So we've all probably had that experience. So that's an analogy to the nature of our mind. It's said to be clear and pure, vast, spacious, like clear sky, free of clouds, free of pollution. Another analogy is water. If you have water that's coming from an underground spring, like an artesian well or something really, really pure water. So that water is completely uncontaminated and unpolluted and fit to drink and even good for you. You don't have to take out any chemicals or dirt or anything. So its nature is just really clear and pure. So in a similar way, the nature of our mind is clear and pure. But there are temporary, or what are sometimes it's called adventitious things in our mind, defilements or stains or things that, just like with water, water can sometimes get polluted if dirt or chemicals get added in. But those are not the nature of the water. They're not like intrinsic to the water, and they can be removed. You can purify the water and restore it to a really pristine, pure situation. And the same with the sky. Sometimes it gets filled up with clouds or with pollution, but the clouds and the pollution are not permanent, always there. They're not part of the nature of the sky. They're just transitory. They come and go. So in a similar way, within our mind, there are these factors, the mental factors, aspects of our mind that are mistaken. They don't see reality. They don't see things in a correct way. They see things in a distorted way. And they can be emotionally afflicted, like hatred or greed or self-centeredness, jealousy, and so on. But they're all based on not seeing the true nature of things, what we call in Buddhism ignorance. So ignorance is a mental factor, aspect of our mind that fails to see things correctly and instead sees things in a distorted way. Just like if you look through some glasses that have weird lenses, and so whatever you look at will be distorted, not correct as it exists. So it's like our mind is kind of covered by or pervaded by these ignorance, which is like these glasses that cause us to see things in a distorted way. And including ourself, we see ourself in a distorted way. We see others in a distorted way, other than how we all really do exist. And so because of this basic misconception or misperception of the way things exist, the mind then comes up with these other afflictions, mental afflictions or disturbing emotions like anger and hatred and greed and jealousy and so on and so forth. So this is not our fault. We didn't choose to be this way, and nobody else made us this way. We can't blame somebody else. But it's just how it's been from beginningless time, according to Buddhism. That's one of those unanswerable questions, one of those questions that, we can't really figure out, so it's better to just put aside. Anyway, this is the situation we are in. So our mind is at present like polluted water or polluted sky, but the pollution are things that can be removed. They're not permanent. They're not intrinsic. Things that will be there forever and ever and ever. And so the practice of purification then is a practice that helps us to clear up this pollution, contamination in our mind, and make it more, restore it to its pure and pristine state. And to really purify the mind, to really eliminate the pollution of ignorance, greed, hatred, and so forth. What we need to do is develop the wisdom understanding the true nature of things, the wisdom understanding emptiness, which is not an easy thing to do. It's one of the most difficult things in Buddha's teachings, but it's not impossible. We can do it. Many have done it before, and we can do it as well. So that's like the main thing that will clear up all the pollution in our mind. But since that's something that will take some time, there are other practices that can help us to reduce the pollution, so it's not causing so many problems in our life and so on. So that's how we come to practices like Vajrasattva. So Vajrasattva is one such practice for purifying our mind. And specifically, it's for purifying karma, actions that we did in the past, motivated by afflictive emotions like ignorance, greed, hatred, and so on and so forth. It's important to purify this karma because when we do such actions, they leave imprints in our mind, and those imprints stay in our mind even when we die and our mind goes to the next life and another life and another life and another life and so on. The imprints of our actions stay in our mind, and then at some point causes and conditions come together, the right circumstances come together. Those imprints will ripen in the form of experiences that we will have, unpleasant, painful, unwanted experiences, things we don't want to happen. But they happen as a result of our karma. So we need to clear out that karma, and this is a particularly powerful practice for doing that. So what we're going to do is we'll do the practice. I'll guide it, and we'll spend some time after visualizing Vajrasattva. We'll spend some time thinking about things that we may have done over the past year, but you don't have to restrict it just to 2020 because you could remember things that you did in 2019 and 2002 and 1984 and so on and so forth. So, anything from our past that we recall that we realize was an unwise and unskillful action. We acted motivated by some disturbing emotion, and maybe we hurt someone or hurt a number of people, and we just don't feel good about it. We feel regret about it. So we'll spend some time bringing to mind a few things that we feel regret for. There'll be opportunities to do this practice again over the next couple of days. So if you don't have to purify everything tonight, just remember as much as you can. And when we do remember actions that we've done, unwise, unskillful actions that we've done, notice if there arises in your mind feelings of, shame and guilt and maybe even self-hatred, like, wow, I'm such a horrible person. We people in the West tend to have these kind of feelings, and they're not appropriate. They're not, the right attitudes that we need to have when we do purification. And it seems that Tibetans don't have such feelings. They don't even have a word for guilt in their language. They do have the word for regret, but regret is not the same as guilt. It's more of a kind of intelligent recognition that something that we did was unwise, unskillful, and that, we regret doing it. But that doesn't mean we feel, oh, I'm such a horrible person, I'm such a bad person, as if that is our real nature permanently for all of time. I've always been this bad person. I always will be this bad person, like, something very concrete and fixed and permanent. So that's not true. I mean, that's just another delusion to think that way. But many of us in the West maybe because of our upbringing, our conditioning, and so on, we may have those kind of feelings. So if you do notice that kind of feeling coming up, recognize that that is not appropriate. That is not how we should think, how we should feel. That's, in fact, like another delusion, another mental affliction that we need to, separate our mind from. It can take time. So, even if you say, no, I'm not going to think that way, it might come back. So don't expect that it's going to just immediately go away and never come back. It takes time. But it's really, really important to have kindness towards ourselves, compassion towards ourselves, forgiveness towards ourselves, and not this extreme kind of guilt and self-hatred and self-criticalness. So just to keep an eye out for that, or keep part of your mind looking out for that, and just recognize, no, that's not how I should feel. And again, regret is actually, they give an analogy for the feeling of regret, the correct feeling of regret. They say, if you ate something or swallowed something and then you found out that was contaminated, it was poison, maybe some other people who've eaten that thing are already getting sick, they're already in the hospital, and so you think, oh my, I ate that too, oh dear. So you would feel, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't done that, because of fear of getting sick, maybe even dying. So if you can, if you've ever had an experience like that, then try to get in touch with that kind of feeling. So it's not that, it's more like just wishing that we hadn't done those actions, because we realize they were unwise and there might be consequences if we don't purify. The karma from our actions, our unwise, unskillful actions, there could be consequences, unwanted consequences, suffering, problems that we definitely do not want. So we want to protect ourselves. So it shows the need for self-compassion, the appropriateness of self-compassion, because we want to protect ourselves from the suffering, the problems that will come if we don't purify. So it's not, we don't deserve to suffer. We shouldn't have to suffer. So the Buddha taught us this method so that we can, purge ourselves of the causes of suffering, the poison that we swallowed unknowingly, accidentally. And so, okay, here's the remedy, clear that out of yourself. So compassion for ourselves is the appropriate attitude to have, being kind to ourselves. And also this kind of attitude of oh, I'm so bad, I'm so horrible, and I'm like that forever and ever. This is also based on a kind of sense of there's a real fixed permanent I, a self, a me, who does actions, who gets angry and shouts at people, or swears, or steals, or uses drugs, or whatever. There's a real I who does those things. And again, that's not correct according to Buddhism. But that's the whole idea of emptiness. That's the whole topic of emptiness, which is a difficult one. But there is no such I who is a fixed, permanent, real, independently existing thing who acts. Rather, there's just the coming together of many different factors, causes and conditions. And our body and mind, this set of aggregates, body and mind, does an action as a result of all these factors, these causes and conditions that come together. But there's no I in there, no fixed permanent I in there who does these actions. It's just a culmination, a flow of many, many different factors and causes and conditions. So actually it's said that the best remedy to our negative karma, to purify our mind, is understanding emptiness, understanding the lack, the absence of such an I. That's the thing that kind of pulls the rug out from under our afflictive emotions that get us into trouble to begin with. But anyway, any idea, any understanding you might have about that can be helpful. to bring in. And we will, at the end of the practice, we'll just spend a few minutes contemplating that idea of emptiness. Okay. So I thought we could start with a few minutes of settling down, sitting quietly, letting our mind calm down, letting our body relax. And then I'll describe the visualization of Vajrasattva, and we'll proceed through the get into a comfortable position. If you can sit cross-legged, that's good. But if you're not able to, you can sit in a chair. Whichever way you sit, though, try to keep your back straight. That helps the mind to be more clear, focused, alert. You can have your hands resting in your lap. The usual way in the Tibetan tradition is right hand on top of the left hand with the palms facing upwards and the two thumbs touching like this. So you can put your hands in that position, but if you've learned another position for holding your hands when you meditate, it's okay to use that. It is important to be comfortable and relaxed. So just take a look at your body, feel if there's any tension, any tightness anywhere in your body. And if there is, let it go. Let it melt and flow away. Become aware of your breathing. Let your breath flow in and out in a natural rhythm. Don't control or manipulate your breathing. Just let your body breathe. Sometimes you might breathe more deeply, sometimes in a more shallow way. That's okay. Your body knows how much air it needs to take in. Just step back and allow your body to breathe. But with your mind, your awareness, pay attention to the breathing. Just be aware of the breath flowing in and flowing out. One breath after another. If other thoughts pop up in your mind, just put them aside. You can always think them later if you need to, but for now, give yourself a break from your thoughts of the past or the future or other places. So let them go, put them aside, and just keep coming back to the breath flowing in and flowing out. Let's take a few more minutes to think about why we're doing this practice and try to generate a really positive motivation for doing it. So I already spoke about how we do this practice to free ourselves from karma that we've created, negative karma, unwise, unskillful karma. So we don't have to suffer the consequences of our actions if we don't purify. So it's to save ourselves from that suffering. But a wider and greater motivation for doing purification would be to clear away the obstacles that prevent us from getting in touch with our pure nature, our Buddha nature, our potential for reaching enlightenment, becoming a Buddha. And the reason for doing that is to be able to help others. Understanding that nobody wants to suffer. All beings, just like ourselves, want to be free of suffering and want to be happy. But most beings don't know how to find genuine happiness. And their minds are full of mistaken mental states, afflictive emotions, ignorance, greed, hatred. And they're acting motivated by those and creating unwise, unskillful karma, which will just bring them more suffering in the future, perpetuating their situation as unenlightened beings experiencing suffering again and again. So they need help, they need guidance, and we can help them by developing our potential for enlightenment. As we grow and progress along the path to enlightenment, our wisdom and compassion and ability to help others increase more and more. So we can become more and more beneficial for others. But we do need to purify our mind to be able to make this progress on the path to enlightenment. So you can think that that's our reason for doing this practice. It's to not just free ourselves from suffering, but develop our potential to reach the highest state possible, the state of enlightenment, the state the Buddha achieved, so that we can help all other beings be free of suffering as well. So the ideal way to practice purification includes 4 powers. And the arrangement, the order of the 4 powers can vary, but in this practice of Vajrasattva, the first power is reliance, which involves relying on or taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, the 3 jewels. And in this practice, the 3 jewels are represented by Vajrasattva, who we visualize in the space above our head. So imagine that a few inches above the top of your head, there is a lotus, white in color with the petals opened, spread out flat, made of light. Every aspect of the visualization is made of light. It's not like ordinary solid material things made of atoms, but just pure transparent light. So there's this white lotus, and above that is a flat disk of white light representing the moon. And then seated upon the lotus and moon is Vajrasattva, So he is a manifestation of enlightened mind, the Buddha's mind, appearing in this form as a deity to help us with the practice of purification. So think that he's not different from the Buddha. He's just like an emanation of the Buddha, exactly the same as the Buddha, as all the Buddhas, Chenrezig, Tara, and so on. They all have the same qualities. So Vajrasattva's body is made of white light, again, pure, transparent, radiant. And he's sitting with his legs crossed in the Vajra posture, the full lotus posture. And he's wearing very beautiful ornaments and clothing made of celestial silk. His hands are crossed in front of his heart, holding a Vajra and bell. If you don't know what a Vajra and bell look like, don't worry, just think that they are there. His face is peaceful and smiling with an expression of pure, unconditional love and compassion for you and all other beings. His expression seems to say that he is completely dedicated to helping you, taking care of you, guiding you to be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. And he's completely forgiving, has no aversion or anger, no matter what you've done. You could have done the most horrible thing in the world, but there would be no anger, no aversion in the mind of Vajrasattva, just total love and forgiveness and the willingness to help. And don't worry about having a perfect, clear visualization. Some people are able to do that, but not everybody. So just do the best you can. Even if you just have a white blob up there in the space above your head, that's good enough. The most important thing is to feel that Vajrasattva is there, who represents all the objects of refuge, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, and is there just to help you be free of suffering and causes of suffering. And you can think that at his heart, that is the heart chakra in the center of his chest, is another moon disk, flat disk of white light. Standing in the center of that is the seed syllable hum. You can just visualize the Roman letters, H-U-M. And around the edge of the moon disk are the letters of the mantra. So again, you probably won't be able to actually visualize those. Don't worry about that. Just think that they are there. Moon and hum and the mantra. So now we do the prayer of taking refuge and generating bodhicitta. So we read that 3 times. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I will liberate all sentient beings and lead them to awakening. Thus, I perfectly generate the mind dedicated to attaining awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I will liberate all sentient beings and lead them to awakening. Thus, I perfectly generate the mind dedicated to attaining awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I will liberate all sentient beings and lead them to awakening. Thus, I perfectly generate the mind dedicated to awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. So that was the first power, reliance, relying upon Vajrasattva as the representation of the 3 jewels of refuge, and generating the altruistic intention to benefit others, to live our life in such a way that we help others as much as we can and not harm them. And the second power is the power of regret. So here's where we bring to mind things that we regret having done. So you can think back over this past year, 2020, but you can also think of things you may have done earlier than that, even as a child. And just as a kind of aid, you can start by thinking about things you may have done that were harmful to others. Sometimes we get angry at another person or a group of other people, and we might say things that are hurtful to them, hurtful words, harsh words, or we might even do something physically harmful, hit them, or even just having thoughts, and the thought to do harmful things, even if we never carry it out. But just having hateful, harmful thoughts in our mind towards another person or another being or a group of people. And see if you can recall any actions like that you may have done, mentally, physically, verbally. So other possible mistaken actions we may have done are those motivated by attachment or greed. So we sometimes have strong desire, greed, attachment, and don't know how to control that, and we follow it, act on it, and might steal things or take more than we should, or again, just having thoughts, desirous thoughts that can sometimes lead to fantasies and making our mind not so peaceful and calm and clear and positive, but disturbed. So try to recall if you've come under the control of strong greed, desire, attachment, and acted in any ways with your body or speech or mind under that, with that state of mind. And try to remember any actions you may have done under the influence of other afflictive emotions such as jealousy or arrogance, self-centeredness, selfishness, or even just confusion, being in a confused state of mind. And just try to remember as many unwise, unskillful things you may have done that harmed others, maybe harmed yourself, or both. Another possible mistake we might have done is if we've taken any vows or precepts. Some of us take precepts for life, like monastic precepts or the 5 lay precepts. Sometimes we take precepts just for a 24-hour period. So if you can recall having taken a precept and then not kept it, and that's also something unwise and skillful to purify. So generate a feeling of regret for these actions, which is an intelligent recognition that these actions were unwise, unskillful. You're sorry that you did them. You wish you hadn't done them. You want to protect yourself from the suffering that would come if you don't purify. And you want to work towards giving up these actions in the future, even if you can't stop them all right away immediately, but train yourself to do them less and less and eventually stop them altogether. See if you can generate that kind of attitude about these mistaken actions that you remember. And there's some words we'll recite directed to Vajrasattva above our heads. So again, remember Vajrasattva is the manifestation, embodiment of Buddha's mind. And that mind is full of compassion, pure, unconditional compassion without the slightest feeling of aversion or anger, non-forgiveness. So just pure forgiveness and compassion, and also wisdom, understanding the true nature of things and able to help you develop that wisdom as well, which is the real antidote to afflictive states of mind and mistaken ways of behaving. So just really feel that Vajrasattva above your head is someone you can completely rely on for help, for guidance, to get yourself out of this situation to a more pure and positive one. So, top of page 38, there's this verse to recite. O Bhagawan Vajrasattva, please clear away all negative karma and obscurations of myself and all living beings, and purify all degenerated and broken commitments. And so now the next power is the power of the remedy. This is doing something positive, virtuous, constructive to counteract the negative energy that we've created through our mistaken actions. So again, focus on Vajrasattva above your head, and at his heart on a moon disk is the seed syllable Hum, representing his pure holy mind. And from this Hum, light radiates out in all directions, reaching all the Buddhas throughout space and requesting the Buddhas to bestow their inspiration. So they accept this request and send white rays of light and nectar, the essence of which is the knowledge of their body, speech, and mind. So imagine that from all the Buddhas all throughout the universe, white light and nectar flow down and go into the Hum and the mantra at Vajrasattva's heart. And this white light and nectar represents the knowledge and qualities and realizations of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So he's getting filled with all that beautiful, positive energy. So imagine that light and nectar filling his entire body, enhancing the magnificence of his appearance and increasing the brilliance of the mantra. And imagine now we're going to start reciting the mantra. While reciting the mantra, white light and nectar stream down from Vajrasattva's heart, where there's the seed syllable Hum and the letters of the mantra on a moon disk. Again, don't worry about seeing those clearly, but just feeling that they are there, and from his heart come this white light and nectar, like a waterfall, beautiful waterfall, blissful energy, flowing down from his heart and coming into the top of your head, and then flowing to every part of your body, every cell, atom, tiny particle gets filled with this white light and nectar, filling you and bringing peace and bliss and purifying all that negative energy that you remember doing and everything else you don't remember. You can just feel all the negative karma you've created, even the things you don't remember, they're all getting purified. So there's different visualizations to do. So maybe we can do seven recitations of the mantra while doing this visualization that is specifically to purify the body. So again, the white light and nectar is filling you, and your negative karma and afflictions, afflictive emotions, particularly those associated with the body, like if you did anything physically that was harmful, unwise, unskillful. So imagine all of that flowing out of your body through all the pores and orifices of your body. And you can imagine it in the form of sort of dirty liquid, dirty sewer water. And you can also imagine scary creatures like scorpions, spiders, and whatever you think is scary. so, so all those things are coming out of your pores, orifices, and going down into the earth below, and there they disappear. They just cease to exist. Just really imagine all that negativity getting flushed out of your body in the form of these scary and dirty appearances. So do that visualization while we recite the mantra 7 times. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Me Bawa Sutukayo Me Bawa Supukayo Me Bawa Anavarato Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Sitam Shriram Guru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Vajramame Munza Vajrabawa Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutukayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsam Sitam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Vajramame Munza Vajrabawa Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tino Patita Tido Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsam Sitam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Sawa Tathagata Vajramame Munza Vajrabawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutokayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriram Guru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawa Tathagata Vajramame Munza Bawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Te Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutokayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Vajramame Munza Vajrabawa Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Suto Kayo Me Bawa Supo Kayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriram Guru Hum Ha 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 Bhagavan Sawa Tathagata Vajramame Munza Vajrabawa Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido me bawa, Sutukayo me bawa, Supokayo me bawa, Anurato me bawa, Sawa siddhi me prayata, Sawa kama sutsame, Sitam shriram kuru hum, ha 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 ho, bhagawa, Sawa tata gata vajra mame munza vajra bawa ma, Samaya sattva ahum pe. So visualize and really feel your body has been purified of all that negative energy of the body. Your body is clean, clear, like a piece of crystal. And some people wonder, what am I saying? What does this mantra mean? So I'll just read a rough translation of the mantra so you have some idea what it means. O great being, whose holy mind is in the indestructible nature of all the Buddhas, having destroyed every obscuration, attained all realizations, and passed beyond all suffering, the one gone to the realization of things just as they are, do not forsake me. Please make me closer to your Vajra holy mind and grant me the ability to realize the ultimate nature of phenomena. Please help me to realize great bliss. Lead me to your state and grant me all powerful attainments. Please bestow upon me all virtuous actions and glorious qualities. So now let's again recite 7 mantras and do a different visualization. This is to purify negative energy associated with our speech. Like telling lies, speaking harshly, talking rubbish, and so on. So here, again, we visualize the light and nectar flowing from Vajrasattva's heart, filling our bodies, completely filling us up. And imagine that negative energy, especially of speech, kind of gets pushed up to the top of the head. Like if you have a dirty glass, a glass with dirt in it, and you pour water in it, so all the dirt will rise up to the top and then spill out, overflow. So that's what happens here. We imagine all the negative energy, especially of speech, getting pushed out of the top of our body, the upper openings like eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. So getting flushed out in that way, and then disappearing, becoming completely non-existent. So visualize that while we again recite the mantra 7 times. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patit Tido me bawa Sutokayo me bawa Supokayo me bawa Anurato me bawa Sawa siddhi me prayata Sawa kama sutsam Sitam shriram kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagawan Sawa tata gata vajra mame munsa vajra bawa maha samaya sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva samaya manu balaya Vajrasattva teno patit. Tido me bawa sutukayo me bawa supokayo me bawa. Anuratu me bawa sawa siddhi me prayata sawa kama sutsam sitam shriram kuru hom ha 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 ho bhagawan sawa tata gata vajrama me munza vajra bawa maha samaya sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva samaya manupalaya Vajrasattva teno patit. Tido me bawa, Sutokayo me bawa, Supokayo me bawa, Anurato me bawa, Nawasiddhi me prayata sawa kama sutsam, Sitam shiram kuru hom, ha 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 ho bhagawan, Sawa tata gata vajrama me munza vajra bawa, Samaya sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutukayo me bawa, Supokayo me bawa. Sawa siddhi me prayata sawa kama sutsame sitam shriram kuru hom ha 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 ho bhagavan. Gata vajrama me munza vajrabawa maha samaya sattva ahung pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutukayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Anurato Me Bawa Sawasiddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tata Kata Vajrama Me Munza Vajra Bawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutukayo Me Bawa Supokayo Me Bawa Me bawa sawa siddhi man prayata sawa kama sutsame sitam shriram kuru hum ha 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 ho bhagavan sawa tata gata vajrama me munza vajra bawa ma samaya sattva ahum pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patit Sudukayo me bawa, Supokayo me bawa, Anurato me bawa, Sawa siddhi me prayata sawa kama sutsame. Kuruhum ha 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 ho. Bhagavan sawa tata gata vajrama me munza vajra bhawam samaya sattva ahum pe. So feel that all that negative energy, especially of speech, has left you, left your body, become totally non-existent. And again, your body is clean and clear like crystal. So sometimes when we do these kind of practices, we might think, how do I know this is really happening? Isn't this just kind of fake? Well, remember when we're kids and we play games like Tarzan and Jane, or cowboys and Indians and doctors and nurses, whatever kind of games you like to play. We don't worry if it's real or not. We just do it and we enjoy ourselves. So try to have that same kind of mind with these practices of visualization and imagination. Just feel that it's happening. Because by doing these practices, we are definitely making a change in our mind, doing something positive and constructive in our mind, purifying our mind. So for the last 7 recitations, we'll do another visualization, and this is mainly to purify negativities of the mind. So imagine that any, imprints of negative thoughts that you may have had, as well as the afflictions themselves, greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy, pride, and so on. So imagine those collecting at your heart as a kind of darkness, dark blob at your heart. And when the light and nectar from Vajrasattva comes into you, reaches your heart, that darkness disappears, just like the darkness in a room disappears when we switch on the light. So you can do that again and again with each mantra. Imagine the darkness collecting and then zapping it with a white light and nectar, and it goes out, it disappears. Darkness disappears, and again your body gets filled with blissful white light and nectar. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bawa Sutukaya Me Bawa Supokaya Me Bawa Anuratu Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsam Sitam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagav Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Munza Vajra Bawa Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bhav Sutukayo Me Bhava Supukayo Me Bhava Anuratmo Me Bhava Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Citam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhago Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Menza Vajra Bhava Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Dido Me Bhava Sutukayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuratu Me Bhava Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsame Sitam Shriram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Munza Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bhava Sutukayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Me Bhava Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsam Citam Shriram Guru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Munza Vajra Bhava Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuratu Me Bhava Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Citam Shriram Guru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhago Sawa Tata Gata Vajra Me Munza Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Tido Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurato Me Bhava Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsa Me Citam Shriram Guru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Manza Vajra Bhava Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Teno Patita Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurato Me Bhava Sawa Siddhi Me Prayata Sawa Kama Sutsame Tidam Shiram Kuru Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sawa Tata Gata Vajrama Me Manza Vajra Bhava Ma Samaya Sattva Ahum Pe. So we have one power left, and this is the power of determination, sometimes called resolution or promise. This is making a promise about the future, giving up these negative actions. So in some cases, we might be able to say, I will never do that again, if it's really heavy and we can be sure that we won't do it again. But with other actions that we might have been doing habitually for a long time, we can't just completely stop. We can make a promise like 5 minutes. I won't do that for the next 5 minutes, or an hour, or a day. So a more limited promise. Or just make a promise, I will do my best and be sincere about it. I will really try my best not to do that action again. So here we can read what it says in the practice. First we take refuge and then we make a determination. Take refuge in Vajrasattva. Through ignorance and delusion I have broken and degenerated my commitments. O spiritual master, be my protector and refuge. Lord, holder of the Vajra, endowed with great compassion. In you, the foremost of beings, I take refuge. Then we make this determination. I shall do my best not to do these destructive actions again in the future. And imagine that Vajrasattva is very pleased with you, with your effort and your determination to stop doing negative actions again in the future. And says to you, my spiritual child of the essence, all your negativities, obscurations, and degenerated vows have now been completely purified. And then imagine Vajrasattva melting into light. So the whole visualization of Vajrasattva, lotus moon, and so on, melts into pure white light, which flows down through the crown of your head and dissolves into you. And imagine that your body, speech, and mind become inseparable from Vajrasattva's holy body, speech, and mind. So we can think here that we have the potential to reach the state that Vajrasattva has attained, state of enlightenment, totally pure of all faults, mistakes, negativities, totally developed in everything positive, compassion, wisdom, love. So one day we'll be there. One day we'll have achieved that. So just imagine having a taste of that now, what that would be like. Some of you have heard teachings on emptiness, maybe done meditation on emptiness. So bring to mind whatever understanding you have of emptiness. We can just remind ourselves there's no inherently independently existing I who does actions, creates karma, and then purifies it. There is a merely labeled I, labeled on our body and mind, but not an I that exists from its own side, independently, objectively. That kind of I doesn't exist. And the same is true for the actions that we do. They don't exist inherently, independently. They arise from many different factors, causes and conditions. They change moment by moment. There's nothing fixed and solid there in an action. The objects of actions, like the people we might harm or lie to or whatever, other beings, they also don't exist inherently, objectively, independently, but they too are empty of that way of existing and merely labeled by the mind. So all the three factors or three spheres, whenever we do an action, the I, the one who does the action itself, the object in relation to which we do the action, they are all empty of existing inherently, independently. And finally, we'll dedicate the merit of this practice with the verses in the text. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Vajrasattva, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.